Let's bring in Chris Mannix, who covers the league for Sports Illustrated. Chris, thanks for joining us. What are some of the ideas being thrown around come playoff time with the NBA?
Well, at this point, the conversations, and it goes without saying, they're very preliminary, all based on the evolution of this crisis, is where would you play these games? I think the league and the owners are pretty, I don't know if resigned is the right word, but they've settled on the fact that it's going to be early to mid-June at the earliest before they can restart any type of season. I mean, I think the talk, some of the talk has been like, do we need to have a training camp of some kind? Because these guys are going to be probably woefully out of shape. Do we have to form some semblance of a regular season to kind of get them back into playing shape? But once the playoffs could start, a lot of it depends on the venues. And, look, you'd ideally play in empty arenas if you had to, but sometimes those arenas aren't available at certain dates. So they've discussed, G League facilities, even practice facilities. Really, I mean, I had one person joke to me like, they'll play at an empty Y if TV cameras can get in there. So it's really just about finding a way to get that television broadcast revenue, whatever means necessary.
Do you think there will be playoffs, that there will be a team crowned champion this year in the NBA?
I don't know. I mean, I lean towards no.
Wow.
If for no other reason, Dan, is that I don't get, and I follow the news as closely as anyone else, and I keep hearing about how this is going to get worse before it gets better. I read about federal reports talking about 18 months potentially of this being a legitimate crisis. I mean, I don't know how all that is resolved in the next 2.5 months. Now, one of the questions I don't think I heard asked last night would have been, do you have a drop dead date? I mean, is there a date that you say, this is it, we have to scuttle the season? I mean, I know that they're talking about that, and that's something that I'm curious to know what that date is. And whatever it is, Dan, I just don't know how you're going to get things back on track enough to play basketball. I mean, really, the first date you have to look at is the mid-May date when the CDC comes out, presumably with new recommendations on size of crowds. If it remains at 50 or 10 even, you're not doing anything in any sport. If it gets upgraded to like 500, then maybe you have yourself a ball game there. So that's the number, and that's the announcement I'm looking for next.
I'm also wondering about this. I talked to a source last night and said, who told me, you know what? Don't rule out maybe first round 3-game series and then a 5-game series and then a 7-game series, as, you progress through the playoffs. Could you see a scenario where they had, truncated playoffs?
It's a good question, and I asked that a couple of different ways, and it's not been discussed, but it certainly is something that I think the people I've talked to anyway would strongly consider, just to salvage any type of postseason. I mean, there's only a certain amount of time they can wait here. They're not going to play games like into September. Like, that's just not going to happen. So if it comes to the point where they get to July and all of a sudden it's kind of an all clear to play sports, maybe you try something like that. I mean, they've shortened playoffs before. I mean, it used to be best of 5 in the first round for a number of years. So it's not unprecedented to shorten it a little bit. And look, these are unique circumstances. If you want to crown a champion and have a playoffs, you've got to, do things differently, just like you did in '99 with the lockout shortened season. It was 2011 with the next one. I mean, desperate times. If you want to do something, if you want to get something done, you have to try some desperate measures.
Talking to Chris Mannix from Sports Illustrated, does it seem like it was 7.5 days ago that Rudy Gobert tested positive?
It feels like a lifetime ago. I mean, it's wild. I mean, and one thing I would say, and not to criticize the NBA, but there's a lot of like NBA being the leader in all this. I mean, they're as guilty as everybody else in waiting too long. I mean, and I say that as a person that wrote a column, the day of the Rudy Gobert stuff that said shut it down. I mean, this was an inevitability. Like, this virus spreading onto NBA courts and amongst NBA players, and And look, there's certainly an argument to be made in hindsight that the league should have shut it down a little bit earlier. But I mean, man, this has happened. This has all just moved so fast from one player testing positive and everything getting shut down to now we've got as many as 7, and I fully expect that number to grow in the coming days and weeks to where we are with not being able to put 10 people into a building in this country. So it's a wild set of circumstances.
The player who will be most disappointed that the season is canceled would be who?
Oh, LeBron James, easily. I mean, he's having and look, we're putting out our MVP awards and award votes this year for the year today on SI.com, and I don't know that he would have had the MVP, but he had a great chance to win a championship. And look, you talk about what feels like a lifetime ago. I mean, the tragic passing of Kobe Bryant, feels like so long ago right now. And this would have been LeBron's chance to not only win another championship, but also do it in a storybook way for the city of Los Angeles. So the way he was playing, the way the Lakers were playing, coming off wins over the Bucks and Clippers, I think he would be the most crushed by all this.
Good to visit with you, Chris. We appreciate your time as always.
I am keeping local businesses in business, Dan, because I have waffles from the same place on the way for the 6th consecutive day in Boston. So I'm ready to go.
Have you ever cooked for yourself?
I tried. Okay, so Paulie knows this. Like, I bought one of those Traeger grills in Vermont, and because Paulie had one, I had to get a bigger one, and I did. I got it for the outdoor deck in Vermont. Officially, I have cooked one hot dog on the Traeger grill.
And you've had it for 2 years.
Yes. I was over at Paulie's Vermont estate at one point, and I saw him cooking a bunch of stuff up there, and I just said I had to have one. And then I got it, and then, first of all, it took me a while as an idiot to figure out how to use it. And then, like, when I got it, I'm like, I don't really smoke things, or I don't cook a lot of things. So I tossed a hot dog and a bun on there, cooked it up, and that was about, I want to say, 9 months ago, and I haven't done anything ever since.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, Dan.
Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated.